Well, hello. This is Steve Sanangelo once again from the SRS Rock Report, and I'm very glad you're here today because this is a very critical update, a very important update, and it's based upon my last two videos, and it's going to show that during the last big market correction in 2016, we didn't have a correction in the gold and silver price. They didn't fall. They actually soared. Now, before I get started, I just want to make sure everyone understands that the video here is for informational purposes only. Now, this next chart shows the Dow Jones Index and how it bottomed in 2009 at about 6,600, more than doubled, and then reached a high here in 2015 at 18,000. Now, in the alternative media, I remember hearing, and also the mainstream media, they were gearing up for a correction. We're going to see a correction. And sure enough, we did. Starting in, let's say, August, September, we saw the first correction. And then it consolidated, the Dow Jones consolidated, and then it moved back up. And in December, towards the end of the year, it didn't surpass the 18,000, but this is the Christmas season, and a lot of investors became kind of complacent. But what happened then, right at the end of the year, into the beginning of the year, we had this huge, another big correction. And this is the one that I believe spooked investors. Now, the next chart, we're going to start right at the beginning of that correction. So right here, we could see at the end of 2015, last few days, the Dow Jones was trading at about 17,700. And over the next week, about 6-7 days, it fell 1,200 points. And then it remained here up and down, but then it fell another 700 points in about 3 weeks. And then it corrected higher, 700 points. And at the beginning of February, that's when we had the next leg down, and the Dow Jones fell 800 points right here in the middle of February. Now, if we look at the gold chart, we see quite the opposite. Now, this arrow shows when the Dow Jones started to correct. Yes, we had a little, about an $8 movement lower, but as you can see, when the Dow fell at 1,200 points, the gold price actually went up $50. Yes, it did fall 30 along with the second phase of the correction, but when the Dow moved higher, so did the gold price. But during that second and more important fearful correction, 800 points of the Dow Jones, this is when the gold price shot up $120. Now, we could see the same thing with silver, even though it's a little bit different because silver is more industrial metal, moved up, down, moved up, and then in that last leg, silver shot up $1.60 with gold. Now, if we look at all three charts side by side, we can see that when we had this major correction in the Dow Jones, the gold and silver price did not fall. They actually moved higher. And if we look over the net period from the beginning of 2016 to the middle of February, the Dow fell 2,000 points. The gold price actually increased $190, and silver moved up $2. Again, we didn't see any big correction in the precious metals. Now, the reason for that has to do with these two corrections in the Dow. This is the first one, which corresponds right here. This is when the worry, investors started to get worried. But as the price of the Dow moved higher, especially into the November and December, they became complacent. But when it spiked down lower again, this is when fear moved in, because I really think investors thought, especially when it moved up and lower again, they thought this was going to be the big one. We were going to see movement lower. So there was a lot of fear. Now, as I mentioned in several videos and articles, there were two record spikes of gold flows into gold ETFs. The first one, which moved up the inventory, was during the first quarter 2009. As I showed you, then the Dow hit a low of 6,600. This was retail investors moving into gold. Now, I don't care if the gold is in there in these ETFs. However, the retail investors are a good indicator of the change in the market, and when the retail investor moves into gold, then the price really moves up. Now, the second largest spike moved up right here, the inventories, is the first quarter of 2016 when the Dow fell 2,000. Now, this next chart, I superimposed the gold ETF flows, and the blue are positive. That means they're moving in, and the red means they're moving out. Now, during that bottoming of the Dow in 2009, according to the World Gold Council, 465 tons of gold moved into gold ETFs. Now, what's fascinating, during that second correction in the beginning of 2016, we had 352 tons move in. The gold price shot up almost $200 only on a 2,000-point correction. Here we could see that spike. So I wanted to show you this again to reiterate that during that big correction, the gold price and silver price did not fall. They moved higher. And the reason why was because of the fear was moving in. Now, what happens when the markets tank this time? Again, this is the Dow Jones. Here we see it hit 26,500. It's been consolidating lower. Now it's moved higher. Even today, this chart was yesterday. It's moved up above 26,000. It's trying to move back up to this level. What happens when the Dow finally starts to correct? And as I mentioned in my previous video, that Keith Weiner from Monetary Metals, he doesn't believe we'll see a major correction in the metals either. And he says that the financial guys are starting to take positions in gold because they don't know the timing. We don't quite know the timing of when this market is finally going to roll over. But what happens when it rolls over 5,000, 10,000 points? What kind of buying of precious metals are we going to see then? So I want to conclude by saying I really think that the precious metal investors are going to be quite surprised this time around. I don't think we're going to see a big correction in the gold and silver price. Matter of fact, it probably will happen similar to what happened in 2016. Why? Because the gold and silver price are still falling now. They've been still falling to their lows like they were in 2016. We don't have high gold and silver prices. So I want to thank you for watching this video, and also please consider, if you haven't subscribed to the SRS Rock Report YouTube channel, please doing so. Thank you very much.